The experience of death, especially if it's someone very close to you, it doesn't really leave much room for thinking. It doesn't leave much room for talking, but it does create a good amount of tears. There's grief, and that's the only language available. And it kind of pushes you inward. There is nothing to say. And I think the experience just kind of pulls you in and consumes you. And initially what happens is there is a relationship between you and the person who has passed. And there is a good amount of reflection and thoughts that take place. Memories come into play depending on the relationship. You either have a lot of good memories or a lot of perhaps sad memories, filled perhaps with regret and remorse. So initially with the passing of someone, it's you and the person. So still the sort of grief that you have is external. It's towards someone that you have lost. Depending on the temperament that you came with when you were born, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, whether you're a feeler or a thinker, that experience stays with you longer, either through the feeling center or the thinking center. And something really strange begins to happen, which is the grief is so intense because of the intimacy that you had, that it kind of leaks itself everywhere. It's as if when you look out there, everything is slowly withering away and you don't really know why. It becomes meaningless. It's like now everything is being touched by death. Your only language really is just silent. There isn't much you can say. But you're not wired to live with these feelings for too long. It's too much for our organism. So the feelings kind of slowly diminish and they are replaced by thinking. Now you begin to think about things. But the foundation of your thoughts are kind of built on the feelings. You can do a couple of things. You can, it's kind of like when the fire is about to die, you add more wood to it. Or you just say, I've been around this fire for long enough. I really just want to go to sleep. It's time to rest. And you wake up in the morning and you look at that, the fireplace and everything has been turned to ash. And you bring the vacuum and you clean everything out. Depending on how this particular experience makes you feel, whether you're feeling or thinking about it, you will either add more wood to the fire to keep it going, or you'll get to a place where you say, and it happens organically, like anything else in life, it really is very much like a relationship. At first you say, I can't live without him. Then you say, I can live without him, but only for 5 hours. And then you say, I can live without him, but just 30 minutes. Then you say, I can live without him for maybe 2-3 days. And then you say, I just think I can live without him, period. So what happens is, despite the fact that the grief is like this ocean of sorrow, and you swim in it, you feel it, you think about it, all these insights come to you, and they're really quite rich. Despite the sadness they create, there is something nice about them. You feel connected to something. It's undefinable, it's not tangible, but it makes you feel connected to something very grand. It may be hollow, it may be void, it may be nothingness, but despite all the awful things that it creates, there is a sense of connectedness to something. It's a really, really difficult thing to be like a Socrates or to be like a Jesus Christ or a Malcolm X, where your skin, inwardly speaking, it becomes so thick that you're able to kind of live with this sort of pain about 20 hours a day. Those are just professional human beings who can do such things. For us, it's I think, a bit too much. So your body just shuts down, your mind shuts down. There comes a point where you just refuse to forget, and you will try your best to find various instruments to keep the flame going. All these activities that you and I do on a daily basis have a tendency of pushing perhaps the most meaningful parts of life, parts of who and what we are. They just push them away. Consider if you were to, for example, truly believe and feel that almost everything in life is meaningless. So the only thing that really stays is the fact that all things just go away. So why do anything? There is this line in Rumi that عشق در دریای غم غمناک نیست. That if you truly believe that all of life is an exercise in futility, there is nothing out there that's worth doing. You will most likely do a couple of things. You will either engage in life like the Christian desert fathers, where they simply lock themselves up in a room, find people who are very much like them, and they realize, those people did, that any kind of attachments, physical, emotional, intellectual, it's kind of like worshipping an idol. And so they will do whatever they possibly can to remain intellectually monogamous, which means that anything foreign, alien that enters them, they have to kind of just get rid of. Or you kind of just do things carelessly. The Deen says ABCD, and you have truly understood that it doesn't really matter who the Deen is. At the end of the day, he's got to go home. He's going to use the restroom. He's as human, as ridiculous as you and I. So you let him have it. You say a few things, not disrespectfully, but intelligently. I remember when I was washing this corpse a long time ago. It's a very intimate experience where you, with towels and sponges, you're just kind of washing the corpse. And you ask, why is this person not getting up? Why is he not walking? Why is he not talking? How does life come? Where does it go? What the hell is all of this? And then I remember going to the car wash, washing cars, and for the next 2 weeks at the dinner table, when all of us were sitting, my parents and my brother and sister, I wouldn't say a word. The experience was kind of just living through me, and it trashed all of my ideas about things. And then without any warning or notice, without any knowledge on my part, all of a sudden I began to kind of just eat well and laugh. And then I remember I had a couple of accidents on the Bay Bridge where both cars were totaled. And the first time it happened, I came out screaming and saying a lot of profanities. And then while it was about midnight, so it wasn't very much traffic, it was 1979. I was very young. And I said, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to study what I want to study. I'm going to do in life what I want to do. In the morning, when I woke up in San Jose at a friend's house. I went to the tennis courts and played tennis for 5 hours. Everything was fine. When I got a bit older, I had another accident on the Bay Bridge. At that particular stage in my life, I was a bit more mature. I had been teaching, done some reading about various things. And it stayed with me for a bit longer. It kind of just was an experience that once in a while would be retrieved, talked about amongst friends and family, and then it would go away. I mean, there is nothing joyous about all of life is suffering. I mean, that's one of the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism. But someone like the Buddha had this ability to talk about the meaninglessness of life in a very meaningful way. Your difficulty is not that life is meaningless. Your difficulty is how to make the meaningless meaningful. If we can kind of think about it the right way and find the right words and then string them together, and then eventually in time refine your ideas and reflections, then you can turn something that is very sad into something that's meaningfully sorrowful, that can inspire people. It just takes so much time and so much dedication. I think it's easy to talk about this stuff. It's like an alcoholic who kind of has an inspired night and he says, I'm just going to quit drinking. But it's just that one night. There is this Persian guy, his name is Shahryar. He was a very strange man. He just died a few decades ago. He had gone to school to become a doctor, a physician, an MD. Unfortunately for him, he had, lack of a better word, he had a soul inside him that was kind of fully alive, and poked them all the time. And you know, in Iran, it's very, very difficult to be accepted, especially in his time, to an MD program. It's nearly impossible. So you have like 10, 20, 30, 40 million people in your country, and you have like 5 physicians, and you have 20 PhDs. That's how rare it is. And because he was Persian, it makes him a bit more complicated in the sense that you have a culture that's 4,000 years old, seasoned by a good amount of grief. So whenever a Persian is born, grief is inside them. Pessimism, cynicism is inside them. And even though he wasn't really a good painter, he couldn't draw well, he had an image in his head. He kept painting and drawing the shape of this woman's eye. He had never seen a woman, you know, with those kind of eyes, but he just imagined that, I hope one day I see a woman whose eyes are shaped in this way. And he was in his 7th or 8th year of his program. He lived in a city called Tabriz. So as he was walking to get some stuff, he runs into this woman he had never seen before. He goes to her and says, "I've been waiting for you for like 20 years. The woman says, "Who the heck are you?" And this is Iran. A man doesn't just go and approach a woman and say hello. And so, they call the police. He's cuffed. But before the police comes and before he is handcuffed, he looks at the woman and says, "Here's my address. I know you will eventually come and knock on my door." He eventually became an MD, and after, I think, either 12 years or 13 years, he walks away from the profession. He just writes. People's physical suffering for him became meaningless. Getting a PhD and an MD in Iran for him became meaningless. Making his parents sad for him became meaningless. For the first time, he realized that his passion, his soul just simply wants to write. And then he got sick. They had a house in Tabriz, so he goes to one of the custodians that kept his house. He said, "This is my new address. One of these days, a woman is going to knock on this door, and they're going to ask for me. Tell them I have moved to this different location." Lo and behold, 16 years later, when he is sick in the hospital, apparently the woman had gone to this guy, said, "I'm looking for Shahryar. I'm sorry he has moved, but this is his address." The point I'm trying to make is, very much like you, he had an experience that most things in life are meaningless despite the fact that I'm doing them. But came this breaking point. Not all of us are fortunate enough or maybe blessed enough to kind of have that breaking moment where you just kind of pack your things and just walk away. You could become like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, that this experience keep whispering in your ear over and over and over again until you just become pregnant with all these feelings and emotions. And it may be 2 months from now, it may be 2 years from now, maybe 10 years, 15, 20 years from now, you kind of just say, "I just don't want to do this anymore. I just want to go into the hospice and just work with, patients who are sick and dying." Right now you have the experience, but you're a little poor to do anything with it. So it just ruins you.